All right, we are going to talk about the digestive system. So the objective of this video is for you to learn the structure and function of the digestive system. So what I'd like you to do first before we start is see if you can place each of these intestines in order that they exist from your mouth, where your food would start, all the way until the very end when the waste comes out. So try to put those organs in order. All right, so your cells need nutrients found in food. You guys know that. You eat food to get nutrients. A lot of you guys say that you eat food to provide energy, and that's 100% true. Food is going to provide you energy and materials for your cells to develop and grow and to repair themselves. Understand that proteins, which come in meat, carbohydrates like sugars, fats or lipids, vitamins, minerals, and water all come from this food we eat. It also allows our body to maintain homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis, remember, means balance with the environment. So all of our cells are able to get all the stuff they need in order to maintain homeostasis. Understand that no food has every nutrient, so you need to eat a variety of foods in order to get all the nutrients that your body needs. So the function of the digestive system is to break food down. It breaks food into small molecules that are absorbed into the bloodstream. So there's two types of digestion. There is, which is the breaking down of food. There is mechanical digestion, which is the physical process where food is chewed and mixed and churned. Okay, and then there is chemical digestion. Chemical digestion is the chemical process where food is turned into mushy substance using stomach acid, bile, saliva, and other enzymes. And that basically breaks down those proteins to help speed up those chemical reactions. So again, mechanical digestion, that's the actual physical breaking down of the food, like with your stomach and then your chewing. And then the chemical digestion, which is actually the chemicals in your intestines which break down those chemical bonds and release the energy. So organs of the digestive system. So there are accessory organs. This is organs that food do not pass through, but you still need for digestion. So these are things like your tongue, your teeth, your salivary glands, your liver, your gallbladder, and your pancreas. So your food doesn't actually go through any of those organs, but you still need them in order for you to actually digest your food. And then you have the digestive tract. This is the organs that food does pass through. This includes your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your small and large intestines, your rectum, and then your anus. So let's start with first your mouth. Your mouth contains your tongue, your teeth, and your saliva. Okay, and basically all three of those things work together to change food into a soft mass or bolus. And this is more mechanical digestion than chemical. Well, actually it's a mixture of both, but mechanical digestion is the process of you chewing your food up and breaking it up, and your saliva starts to make it kind of gooey and starts to break some of those bonds. So that's where the chemical digestion comes in. The next is your esophagus. This is a muscular tube. So it's a muscular tube that moves food to the stomach using peristalsis. Basically, those are muscle contractions. So remember when we talked about the types of muscle, how we have voluntary and involuntary. You don't have to think about moving that food through your esophagus down to your stomach. It just happens naturally. And it's, again, peristalsis, and that's muscle contractions of your esophagus that move the food from your throat into your stomach. So the stomach. This is the muscular sac. It turns food into thin, watery liquid called chyme. So your stomach is responsible for both a mechanical process and a chemical process. When it says peristalsis for the stomach, your stomach actually literally contracts and opens and contracts and opens, kind of smooshing your food while it's in there. Along with the mechanical digestion is also the chemical digestion, and that's what the digestive juices or stomach acid and enzymes. So they help break down all those chemical bonds in your food, and they turn it into this thing called chyme, this watery liquid. So your small intestine is where it goes. So after it goes into your stomach, it heads into your small intestine. And your small intestine is a long tube, very small in diameter but very long, and it functions in chemical digestion. So we're done with our mechanical digestion at this point, and it's just a chemical digestive process. So now there is more enzymes in the small intestine, and they break down the food further, and then they start taking out the nutrients. So they're responsible for nutrient absorption. So through here, there's a lot of blood vessels, and the nutrients actually diffuse, if you remember that word. They move out of the small intestine through those blood vessels, into those blood vessels, into the bloodstream, where all those nutrients can be taken to all the cells of your body. So it's lined with villi. These are called villi, these little finger-like things, and they are the things that are responsible for digestion or absorption of nutrients. Each villi is composed of cells that have microvilli. So inside each of those little tiny fingers, you're going to get these little tiny other fingers, okay, called microvilli. Here, I'll move this down so you can see this diagram. Where is it? There we go. So, and these microvilli line up to these cells, and these cells, you see how I said that there were little blood vessels? Well, here's the little capillary, and that capillary, okay, is what is going to pick up the nutrients. So these cells these microvilli on these cells are what are responsible for transporting the nutrients to the bloodstream, and that way they can be distributed to all the cells all over your body. So let's compare. If the small intestine were a simple smooth tube without folds and villi, the surface area would be this, the inside of the tube as seen below. Now let's compare. So basically, you only have this surface for which to absorb nutrients. It looks like a lot, but let's compare it to this. So because we have all these microvilli, now we have a lot more surface area, and that allows us to absorb a lot more nutrients. So the gathering of the intestinal wall into folds lined with villi increases the surface area tremendously. Imagine that the folds are a string and you are pulling on the end with an arrow. Okay, the folds are a string and you're pulling on the end with that arrow. You can't see the arrow, sorry. There it is right there. Okay, you are pulling on an end with the arrow. Okay, it would unravel to a length much greater than that of the smooth tube. So if I were to pull this same tube and I were to measure it, measure how long this black line is right here, this black line on the smooth tube would be way shorter than this black line with all the microvilli. In fact, the surface area is comparable on this one to that of a tennis court. Okay, so basically, even though it's on this screen and it's small, I could take that out and it would be the length of a tennis court. That's how much surface area is hidden in each of these microvilli, and that allows a lot more surface area, means a lot more movement of nutrients into the bloodstream, which means we get a lot more nutrients out of our food. So here's some of the accessory organs. Remember, the accessory organs are the ones that the food doesn't actually travel through. So accessory organs to the small intestine are the liver. This is the large red-brown organ that makes bile. So here is your liver. And bile is what exists in the small intestine that allows for digestion. That's the digestive juices of the small intestine. We have the gallbladder. This also stores bile. So liver makes bile, gallbladder stores bile, and it is released into the small intestine and helps break down fat. Okay, so this breaks down the fat. We have the pancreas. This makes digestive enzymes and insulin, which regulate blood sugar. So this pancreas is super important because every time you eat something, you get a certain amount of sugar in your blood. Okay, so, and that's important. You need that, right? You're basically through digestion, those microvilli pull out all that sugar. That sugar ends up in your bloodstream, and the sugar goes to all of your cells. If you remember when we talked about cellular respiration, you need that sugar because that sugar gets broken down for ATP in your cells, and your cells need ATP. There is, though, the case when you have too much sugar in your blood. And when you have too much sugar, you don't need that much, and you don't want to poison your cells. So there's this hormone called insulin that your pancreas makes, and that controls your blood sugar, meaning it breaks it down. It takes all that sugar and it makes it into fat. It stores it for later in case you don't have enough sugar later. So that's your pancreas's job. Now, from the small intestine, we move into the large intestine. So remember, the small intestine absorbs nutrients. The large intestine absorbs water from undigested chyme. So every single time we digest something, there's going to be excess liquid. And we don't want to lose that because it's really good for our bodies to have that much more fluid in our bodies. So the large intestine absorbs that water. And it is from the undigested chyme. Remember, that's what all that undigested liquid is called. And the chyme can be in the large intestine as long as 3 days. 3 days. And basically, during those 3 days, it just allows the water to diffuse out of the large intestine and into your bloodstream as you need it. So the appendix is a part, or accessory organ to the large intestine, and this is the sac that attaches to the large intestine and is now known to provide immune support in the body. So the appendix is actually responsible for helping your immune system do some things. After we leave the large intestine, we go to the rectum and then the anus, and this is the control center of when we release solid waste or feces, poop, from the body. Okay, so these are the last couple of organs that actually participate, have food pass through them during the process of digestion. So rectum first and then the anus, and that again controls the release of solid waste. Some of you guys were talking about voluntary versus involuntary muscles, and we were talking about, well, you obviously, most of your digestive system is involuntary, you don't have to think about it, but then there is that control that we have so that we don't just poop ourselves all the time, but we have that control, and so our anus is actually run by voluntary muscles, whereas our rectum is involuntary. So that's what allows us to know when we have to go and then to be able to control it.